I've got a couple things I have to handle here at the shop this morning.
That's a pretty heavy project. So that's one of the things I want to talk about the vacation. I had some time off.
What does extended vacation mean?
To quote Stevie Nicks, I think I have to go my own way.
Some shows build legends, but Fast and Loud also built grudges, tension, and behind-the-scenes drama that never made it to air.
We build so much, we build so fast, it absorbs every second of my time, so I really think it's time to go. I need to make a permanent split. It's time for me to go.
All right, so how do I talk you out of it?
You know, on this one, I'm not sure that there is a way to.
While fans watched the custom cars roll out, few knew the real battles were happening off-camera. For years, Aaron Kaufman kept his mouth shut, choosing hard work over hard truths. But now, he's done staying quiet. In a stunning revelation, Aaron finally names the 5 people who made life in the garage a living nightmare. So, who are these individuals? Get ready, because what he's about to reveal will change how you see the show forever. Richard Rawlings, the brand first boss who derailed the garage. Aaron Kaufman had always believed that great craftsmanship and real respect were what built a garage worth working in. But as Fast and Loud took off, so did the real drama, one that unfolded far from the camera's lens and deep inside boardrooms and behind-the-scenes calls. And for Aaron, one name symbolized the shift from passion to performance: Richard Rawlings. It all began in Dallas, Texas, where Gas Monkey Garage rose from a humble shop into a full-blown TV phenomenon. But it wasn't just the roar of engines that got the show on air. It was persistence, pressure, and, in Aaron's eyes, manipulation. Back in the early days of pitching Fast and Loud, Rawlings had a vision. But more than that, he had an obsession. He bombarded the Discovery Channel with relentless calls, emails, and proposals until someone, specifically Craig Kaufman, then a senior VP at Discovery, finally gave in. Aaron would later recall how Craig himself admitted the network might have approved the show just to stop Richard from hounding them. That wasn't determination, Aaron thought. It was pestering dressed up as entrepreneurial drive. Craig even said that out of all the people he'd worked with in the industry, Richard was by far the most aggressive, and not in the gets things done kind of way. This was the kind of aggression that bulldozed anything in its path. Aaron couldn't deny that Richard had business smarts. He was always on the hunt for a new investment angle, a fresh product line, or another branding gimmick. He didn't just build cars, he built an empire. But that empire, Aaron believed, came at a cost. The brand began to matter more than the builds. Instead of wrenching for the love of cars, they were now filming for the sake of exposure. Gas Monkey wasn't just a garage anymore. It was a billboard. Literally, Richard had the logo painted on the roof of the shop, so planes flying overhead could see it. To Aaron, it was a perfect metaphor. While he was focused on what was happening inside the garage, Richard was fixated on how it looked from 30,000 feet in the air. The culture shifted. Meetings became more about marketing than mechanics. Aaron found himself watching the soul of the shop slip away, replaced by merchandise, commercials, and carefully staged scenes. It wasn't just frustrating, it felt dishonest. The very thing that had made Gas Monkey special, the raw, dirty, unfiltered car work, was being polished into something Aaron no longer recognized. He didn't hate Richard, but he couldn't ignore the pattern. Aaron believed Richard had a way of making everything orbit around himself, using people as stepping stones to boost the brand. And while that may have made sense from a business perspective, it didn't sit right with Aaron's principles. He had gotten into this work because of a deep love for machines, not because he wanted to see his face on billboards or his name on hot sauce. Even the way the team was treated began to reflect this new business-first mindset. Aaron noticed how decisions were increasingly made without input from the people who actually turned the wrenches. It was top-down management, with Richard calling the shots and expecting everyone else to fall in line. The worst part? Most of the people around him either stayed quiet or played along, afraid of losing their place in the empire. In Aaron's view, this made Richard one of the worst kinds of people to work with, not because he was incompetent, but because he was calculating. Every move, every smile, every handshake was a step in a master plan designed to grow the brand, no matter the human cost. And for someone like Aaron, who valued authenticity over appearances, it was a constant internal battle. What had started as a shared dream of building something real had slowly become a well-oiled PR machine, and Aaron couldn't help but wonder how many others had been chewed up and spit out in the name of the Gas Monkey brand. This wasn't a garage anymore. It was a machine built to chew people up. So who was next? Stay tuned. Tom Smith and Jordan Butler. The sympathy play that backfired. Aaron Kaufman had seen plenty of drama in the Gas Monkey garage, but few situations ever stirred the pot like the one involving Tom Smith and Jordan Butler. On the surface, they were easy to like. Two skilled mechanics with big personalities who brought color and comedy to the show. But behind the scenes, Aaron saw a very different story. For him, they weren't just casualties of Fast and Loud's chaos, they helped accelerate its decline. The turning point came in late 2014. Aaron remembered walking into the shop one morning only to find that both Tom and Jordan were gone. No warning, no explanation. Fans were just as confused. The duo had become household names on the show, and their sudden absence sparked a flood of questions online. At first, it looked like they'd simply walked away, but as whispers turned into headlines, the truth began to surface. The story that emerged was one tailor-made for sympathy. A young fan, reportedly battling cystic fibrosis, had come to the garage hoping for a quick picture with one of the custom builds. Management said no. Health risk, insurance liability, whatever the excuse was, the answer was clear. But Tom and Jordan went ahead anyway, letting the kid pose with the car. A touching moment, right? A heartwarming exception made in the name of kindness. But to Aaron, things weren't that simple. He knew how the shop operated. Rules, whether strict or stupid, were rules, and every employee knew what bending them could cost. Letting the fan in wasn't just an act of kindness. It was a direct challenge to authority, one that could have set off a chain reaction if it wasn't dealt with. Sure enough, Richard Rawlings fired them both. And that's when the real storm hit. Tom took to social media and interviews, painting a picture of himself and Jordan as the compassionate heroes punished for doing the right thing. The internet loved it. Within days, Rawlings was branded as a cold-hearted villain, a man too concerned with image to care about a dying kid's wish. Aaron watched as fans turned on the show, abandoning it in droves, disgusted by what they believed had happened. But Aaron had a different take. He didn't disagree that the situation was tragic. He didn't even think the firing was necessarily right. What troubled him was how Tom and Jordan had taken a complex, sensitive moment and used it to spark a media circus. Instead of handling things with professionalism or even quiet defiance, they played to the crowd, knowing full well that cancel culture was rising fast and the public would eat up a David vs. Goliath narrative. From that moment on, Aaron felt the fabric of Fast and Loud unravel. The focus shifted from cars to controversy. The shop didn't feel like a workshop anymore. It felt like a war zone of competing egos and PR battles. And though Richard bore much of the backlash, Aaron couldn't ignore the role Tom and Jordan played. Their exit didn't just cause a stir, it cracked the foundation of trust that held the team together. Even long after they were gone, the effects lingered. Viewer numbers dipped, fan pages turned into debate forums, and as Richard pivoted to YouTube and digital ventures, Aaron could feel the show's original soul slipping further away. In Aaron's eyes, Tom and Jordan may not have intended to sabotage the show, but their actions, their handling of that moment, and the way they fueled public outrage left scars that never fully healed. And for a man who valued honesty and humility above headlines, that made them two of the worst people to ever pass through Gas Monkey's doors. So, how did a wild guest turn Gas Monkey from garage glory to chaotic circus? Keep watching. Jesse James, the guest who turned Gas Monkey into a circus. When Jesse James joined Fast and Loud in 2016, the automotive world stood still for a moment. Here were two of the biggest names in custom car culture: Jesse James, the rebellious outlaw from Monster Garage, and Richard Rawlings, the fast-talking businessman behind Gas Monkey Garage, finally sharing screen time. Fans expected fireworks, but no one, not even Aaron Kaufman, was ready for how explosive things would actually get. From the beginning, Aaron sensed trouble brewing. On paper, Jesse's arrival was a big win. It was supposed to bring fresh energy, legendary craftsmanship, and a bit of edge. But in practice, Aaron watched as egos began to clash. At first, it was all laughs and handshakes. The team pretended to mesh, and the audience was eating it up. But to Aaron, it felt forced. Too much performance, not enough passion. Jesse wasn't there to build anything meaningful. He was there to steal the spotlight. Aaron had worked too long in that garage to be fooled by TV smiles. Behind the scenes, the tension was building fast. Jesse didn't take direction well, and Richard didn't like to share control. It wasn't long before the friction between them jumped from quiet mutterings to full-blown rivalry. And when it finally exploded, it happened in the most juvenile and embarrassing way possible. After Richard made some snide remarks about Jesse during a media interview, remarks that Aaron found reckless and unnecessary, Jesse responded in a way that stunned the crew. One morning, without warning, Jesse showed up at Gas Monkey Garage with a trailer full of horse manure. Not a metaphor, actual manure. He dumped the entire load across the driveway, right in front of the garage's iconic gates. Cameras were rolling, and Jesse made sure every angle was caught on film. Aaron stood there in disbelief. This wasn't just a prank. This was a calculated spectacle. Jesse wanted to humiliate Richard, and in the process, he dragged the entire crew into a mess they didn't ask for. The stunt aired shortly after and triggered a tidal wave of backlash. Fans were confused. Critics called it tasteless and juvenile. And while some laughed, many more cringed. Worse yet, it stained the show's image, literally and figuratively. Gas Monkey Garage had spent years building a brand around grit, precision, and classic car culture. Now it was being mocked online for a driveway full of manure. Aaron couldn't help but feel angry, not just at Jesse, but at everyone who enabled the stunt in the name of ratings. It wasn't funny. It wasn't smart. It was a disaster. In Aaron's view, Jesse James had crossed a line. He wasn't just stirring the pot, he was poisoning it. The show stopped being about the builds and started becoming about drama. Jesse had brought chaos where there should have been craftsmanship, turning a serious garage into a three-ring circus. And the worst part? It worked. Viewers tuned in for the drama, not the cars. And that shift in focus was something Aaron never wanted to be a part of. Jesse's reputation, once grounded in real skill and hard-earned respect, took a major hit. And while he eventually faded from the Fast and Loud spotlight, the damage had already been done. Aaron saw the fallout firsthand: the divided fan base, the tense work environment, and the growing sense that Fast and Loud was becoming more about showbiz than shop work. To Aaron, Jesse James didn't just stir up trouble. He exposed the worst side of reality TV, a side where egos mattered more than engines and public feuds sold better than finished builds. And for a guy who believed in the grind over the gimmick, that made Jesse one of the worst people to ever step foot in the Gas Monkey garage. But how did a garage, built on grit, become a stage for egos and feuds? Stay glued to uncover everything. Yulan Hiso, the talent quietly pushed aside. Aaron Kaufman had always respected people who showed up, worked hard, and let their craft speak louder than their ego. And when it came to interiors, seats, headliners, custom trim, there was one name that stood above the rest: Yulan Hiso. Even though she wasn't officially part of the Gas Monkey garage crew, to Aaron, she felt like one of them. She showed up when called, never missed a detail, and could transform even the roughest interior into something showroom-worthy. It wasn't just her hands that impressed people, it was her presence. She had a sharp sense of humor and quick wit that cut through the garage noise. Her one-liners could stop even the loudest engine mid-roar, and the guys often joked that she could outshine them all with a needle and thread. Aaron remembered the early seasons when Yulan was called in almost every time they needed upholstery done. It wasn't even a question. If it needed to be perfect, it had to be Hiso. But then something changed. Around 2017, just as the show was leaning harder into flash and drama, Aaron noticed Yulan wasn't coming around anymore. One project turned into 2, then 3. Eventually, she was gone completely. No explanation, no mention, just faded out like she'd never been part of the scene. Fans started asking questions online. Where's Yulan? Why doesn't she do the interiors anymore? But there were no answers. Aaron, of course, knew the story. It wasn't personal, it was business. Or so Richard Rawlings said. He'd found someone else, someone cheaper. And in Richard's world, saving a buck often outweighed loyalty or long-standing relationships. That didn't sit right with Aaron. Yulan had never failed them. She didn't ask for much, just respect and fair work. But once price became the deciding factor, she was gone. And yet, Aaron wasn't surprised when he heard that Yulan was doing better than ever. Being on Fast and Loud had given her the exposure she needed, and she used it wisely. She didn't chase fame, she chased progress. With every stitch, every design, she built a loyal client base and turned her talent into a business that was no longer just admired, but sought after. Now, she was running her own growing company, carving out her empire in a male-dominated industry and proving that real skill doesn't need a spotlight to shine. But to Aaron, what happened to her was just another reminder of how the show was changing, and not always for the better. The people who truly made the garage special, those with integrity, passion, and consistency, were slowly being pushed aside for cheaper, louder alternatives. Yulan had delivered nothing but excellence, and yet even she became expendable when budget cuts and brand deals took priority. Watching her leave, not because of failure, but because of being undervalued, reinforced Aaron's belief that the spirit of Fast and Loud was being traded in for something far less genuine. Then came the quiet exit that exposed a louder truth. Was loyalty replaced by loudmouths? Stay tuned to uncover it all. Christy Brimbury, the backbone pushed out by the chaos. Aaron Kaufman had worked with a lot of people over the years, but few earned his respect the way Christy Brimbury did. She wasn't a mechanic. She didn't weld or paint, but she ran Gas Monkey Garage like a well-oiled machine. From tight deadlines to budget constraints, paperwork to personnel issues, she kept everything moving behind the scenes. To Aaron, Christy was the glue. Without her, the chaos of Fast and Loud would have swallowed the garage whole. She didn't just manage. She stabilized. While cameras chased drama and Richard Rawlings chased deals, Christy was the one keeping projects on track and people from burning out. She wasn't loud, she wasn't flashy, but her presence gave the garage structure. When things went wrong, and they often did, she was the first to find a solution and the last to take credit for it. But in late 2016, everything changed. Christy got news that would stop anyone in their tracks. She had cancer. It wasn't just a scare. It was serious, the kind of diagnosis that demands immediate action and months of painful treatment. Without hesitation, she stepped away from the garage to focus on survival. Radiation, surgeries, endless hospital visits. Aaron remembered how strong she stayed through it all. While Christy was away, the garage stumbled. No one said it outright, but everyone felt her absence. Deadlines slipped. Tension rose. The balance she had worked so hard to maintain fell apart without her steady hand. But what really made things worse, at least in Aaron's eyes, was what was happening on camera. Jesse James had returned for a brief stint around that time, and his presence lit a firestorm of drama. He brought with him a different kind of energy, louder, more reckless. The show shifted focus almost entirely to the entertainment side. It wasn't about cars anymore. It was about who could pull the wildest stunt, say the craziest thing, or spark the next viral moment. Aaron couldn't help but notice how quickly people like Jesse filled the space Christy left behind, not by doing her job, but by turning the show into a spectacle. When the cameras should have paused to acknowledge her battle, to honor the work she'd done, they instead doubled down on showbiz antics. To Aaron, it was one of the lowest points. Christy had held that place together, and now her name was barely mentioned. When Christy eventually beat cancer, she made a choice that Aaron understood all too well. She didn't come back. She realized life was short, too short to waste in stress, under fluorescent lights, juggling egos and unpaid invoices. Instead, she opened a salon, something she'd always dreamed of, and traded the roar of engines for the calm of clippers and conversations. Today, she spends more time with her family, runs her business on her own terms, and lives in peace. Aaron often looked back at the days when Christy ran the garage and wondered what the show might have become if people like her had been valued over the loudest voice in the room. For him, Christy wasn't just a great manager. She was the soul of Gas Monkey. And when people like Jesse came through, disrupting everything with theatrics and ego, it made her absence feel even heavier. In Aaron's view, the show didn't just lose a manager when Christy walked away. It lost its balance. And those who pushed the chaos further made it nearly impossible for someone like her to return. So, what do you think really drove Fast and Loud off the air? Fading fame or something deeper? We'd like to hear your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.